Do you want to live to be 100 years old? I'll bet you don't just want to live to be 100, but you want to live well when you're 100. Peter Attia has this concept that he calls the centenarian decathlon. It's a collection of activities that people want to be able to do when they hit 100 years old. And I'd encourage you to make your own list. Maybe it's something like doing a hike, traveling to foreign countries, being able to lift your luggage into the overhead compartment yourself, or heck, even lift your great-great-grandchild up into the air. Whatever those things are that are on your list, I'll bet that all of them require muscle. Health requires muscle. And it's no surprise that when muscle fails, health fails as well. The modern world is not conducive to having muscle. Most Americans sit 90% of their waking hours. And even those that do exercise purposefully in the morning simply aren't doing enough to keep themselves healthy. Studies show that those who sit for extended periods of time have significantly increased risks of many chronic preventable health conditions. Some of you may purposely exercise for an hour a day and then spend a lot of the rest of the day sitting. If that's you, you're what I would technically call an active couch potato. Here's the deal. Couch potatoes don't have much use for muscle. Even with all that sitting, folks are living longer today. It's estimated that by the year 2050, there'll be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 15 for the first time in human history. The sad reality is that 92% of folks over the age of 65 suffer from one or more chronic diseases. These are things like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, etc. But there's one disease that's not mentioned anywhere in the research, and that's sarcopenia. It literally means a poverty of flesh, but I would also call it a poverty of strength. All of us begin to lose muscle mass as we age. It begins as early as our 30s. And by the time you're 80 years old, the typical person will have 40% less muscle mass than their 30-year-old self. What's even more concerning than the loss of muscle mass is our loss of strength. We lose strength at a rate of 2 to 3 times greater than we lose muscle mass. The reason is because we lose type 2 or fast twitch muscle fibers at a more rapid rate than type 1 or slow twitch muscle fibers. Type 2 muscle fibers are responsible for really important things like getting up and down off the ground, lifting those grandkids up overhead, or being able to be active and healthy. There's a fascinating Chilean study that was done on 1,400 men and women over the age of 70. They split people up into quartiles in terms of their muscle mass at baseline. 12 years later, they looked at those in the bottom quartile, and 50% of them were dead. Compare that to those in the top quartile, or those with the most muscle mass, only 20% of those folks were dead, so 80% of them were still alive. There's also the Hallmark grip strength study that shows that for every 11-pound decrease in grip strength, you're 16% more likely to die from all causes. The same researchers looked at folks in the quartiles of muscle mass and found that within 10 years, those in the lowest quartile of muscle mass were 6 times more likely to report a lower quality of life. You probably know the family member that spent the last 10 to 15 years of their life bedbound and immobile. So my guess is you're thinking, I don't want to just live longer, but I want to live better. It's fundamental that we understand the difference between lifespan and health span. Peter Attia has this great model where he describes the difference between lifespan and health span. As you can see on the graph here, without intervention, our health begins to decline as we age. Now, Medicine 2.0, which pumps us full of pills and does life-saving surgery, allows us to extend our lifespan towards the end of life. Now, these are the years that people typically live, bedbound, taking a bunch of different medications, and really being unhealthy. Medicine 3.0, on the other hand, is all about preventative and wellness and holistic care on the front end. We do the things that we need to do to stay healthy for as long as we can, and then have a sharp decline right at the end of our life. In other words, live long, drop dead. So what causes us to lose or gain muscle? If you take a healthy male in their 20s and they normally walk 10,000 steps per day, you have that male cut back their walking take a car to class, ride the elevator instead of taking the stairs, and reduce their daily steps to 2,000, they'll lose 5% of their muscle mass in 2 weeks. By the same token, an elderly person who's bedbound for 10 or more days will lose 10% of their muscle mass. That's crazy that you can lose so much muscle mass so fast. In fact, you can lose what normally takes a decade to lose in the span of 2 weeks. So it's really easy to lose muscle, but it doesn't have to be that way. Check out this picture here. This is a cross-section of a thigh. I mean, if you were to take a slice through the thigh of someone, and we look at the amount of muscle mass and fat. If you look at the 40-year-old athlete, you can see that they mainly have muscle, very little fat around the edge and a little bit of bone in the middle. Compare that to a 74-year-old sedentary person, and you can see that they have a lot of fat. In fact, their muscle is marbled, like you would expect a cow to be that has a lot of fat, that's lived a very sedentary life. Now, it might be easy to say, well, that's just because they're older. That's what happens to everyone. But then take a look at the bottom one, this 74-year-old athlete. Now, does this look more similar to the 40-year-old athlete or to the 74-year-old sedentary person? Obviously, this looks more similar to the 40-year-old athlete. So it's very possible to maintain our muscle and keep our fat at bay as we age. Now, what if you haven't been an athlete all your life? Is it possible to build strength when you're older? Research says you can indeed teach an old dog new tricks. Researchers took 84-year-olds and had them strength train their legs for 12 weeks. What they found at the end of the study was that their strength increased by 50% and their muscle mass increased by 40% in 12 weeks. And these are people in their 80s. So muscle wasting, muscle loss can actually be reversed. Next, I want to get into my 2 golden rules of aging strong. Now, these are what I have found to be the 2 most important rules for building muscle, for being strong as you age. In my doctoral work, in my decades of working with people one-on-one as a trainer before I was a physical therapist, these 2 rules reign supreme. Number 1, get 100 grams of protein per day. 40% of women over the age of 65 don't get the recommended daily amount of protein. What's even worse is that the daily recommendations are a joke. They may be enough to survive, but they're definitely not enough to thrive. The standard recommendation is 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. So if you're a 150-pound female, that's going to be 45 grams of protein. A healthy aging and body composition study looked at those who consumed 100 grams of protein compared to those who consumed 50 grams of protein. At the end of the study, they found that those in the high protein group lost 40% less muscle mass than those in the low protein group, all other things taken into account. Another study showed that adding just 30 grams of milk protein to the diet of frail, elderly folks significantly improved their physical performance. So my recommendation is 100 grams of protein per day. One of my favorite protein sources is eggs. I love to have 2 eggs. I even add some egg whites in for breakfast just about every single day. If you struggle to get protein from real foods, you can consider adding something like collagen powder to your daily routine. The second golden rule of aging strong is 3 strength training sessions every single week. I get asked often, is walking enough for building strength? And my answer is that walking is way better than nothing for building muscle. Research shows that if you walk, you can actually maintain muscle mass, but only to a certain extent. If you want to really maximize your longevity, you have to be strength training. If you want to give yourself the best chance possible for having a healthy, strong body, you need to do that with weights. Training, or exercise in general, is all about stress. We expose our body to a stress, it breaks the body down, and the body responds by becoming stronger and preparing itself for the next workout. This is best described by the supercompensations theory of training. As you can see, when the training stimulus happens, we actually get weaker for a time. Eventually, about 24 to 48 hours later, the body starts to build back up and it crosses the strength threshold of the previous workout. So you actually, for a time, are stronger than you were when you did the previous workout. And that's when you want to do the next workout and start the process all over again. You can see from this graph here that if you don't do enough of a workout, you don't create enough of a stimulus, the supercompensation is going to be small. And if you do too much or you overdo it, you won't have any supercompensation at all because you've broken yourself down too much. Now, you know you need resistance training, you know you need strength training. It's time to answer the age-old question. Should you be using machines or should you be using free weights? Either will work for building strength. The research is really clear on that. But using machines is kind of like bowling with the guardrails up. You can throw the ball wherever you want and it's always going to go down and strike the pins. Using free weights or barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells is like bowling with the rails down. You really have to understand and get good at throwing the ball, at moving your body. Strength training with weights forces your feet, your knees, your hips, your core, all of it to work together synergistically like it was designed to. When you use machines, you can just blow apart different segments of your body individually, kind of like in an orchestra. If somebody who played the trumpet in an orchestra, they just practice alone. They never practice with the orchestra. When it comes time to do the grand performance, they may sound great by themselves, but they're not going to sound great in conjunction with everyone else because they haven't practiced together. If we want our bodies to be able to work synergistically, like when we lose our balance and need to catch ourselves, or we want to lift something up overhead, we need to train that way. Some people call this functional training. I just call it strength training. Now, how often should you be strength training? The research says the more often you do it, the better. 3, 4, 5 times a week. However, there's diminishing returns above 3 sessions a week. So I think having this prioritized in conjunction with all the other priorities in your life, I'd recommend going 3 days a week of strength training. My strength training approach is built on 12 movements. We call these the Village Movement Standards, the 12 most important exercises to have in place in your life if you want to be strong, balanced, have great mobility, and fantastic endurance. Covering all 12 of these movements is beyond the scope of this video. So what I want to do is give you the big 3. The 3 most important exercises for strength. Those are the squat, the deadlift, and the overhead press. These use big muscles within our body. Muscles like the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, upper body muscles like the deltoids, the pectoral muscles, and of course, the core. When you're just starting out, I'm going to recommend that you do all 3 of the big movements every single day. So every single day in this workout plan, you'll see 30 to 60 minutes of walking. Ideally, this is done before the workout to warm you up and prep your body for the session, but it could be done at any point during the day. There's also a dynamic warm-up built into every single day that I'm going to go through right now. Start with 10 calf raises, lifting all the way up. You're welcome to hold on to something if you need it for balance. Then you're going to hug your knee up towards your chest, 10 times on each side. Again, if you can't quite reach your hand all the way to your knee, you can just march in place. Then you're going to kick your heel up towards your butt. If you can, grab your shoelaces and give your knee a nice pull. Then you're going to bring your foot up and across your body towards the other hip. If you can, again, grab your shoelaces and pull your foot up and across your body. Then, to warm up the spine and the core, we're going to do a torso twist, 10 times on each side. Then some arm circles, forward and backwards. And finally, one of my favorites, the face hug. Then we're going to get into the actual strength training session itself. So with a squat, we always want to make sure that we can do a body weight squat to full depth before we add any sort of external resistance. Now, if you can't squat all the way down to full depth, you can use something like a doorpost, a squat rack, or a TRX to get yourself down into the position as you're building up strength initially. Then when you start to add weight, I'd recommend starting with a kettlebell goblet squat until you can do at least 35 pounds. Once you're able to do a 35-pound kettlebell goblet squat all the way down to full depth, it's time to progress to the barbell. The barbell goes across your upper back and allows you to place a lot more weight across your back and spine. Next is the deadlift. We start with a body weight hinge, working on sending our hips towards the back wall. Eventually, you're going to progress to a kettlebell deadlift where you're lifting the weight off the ground. If you need to, you can elevate the kettlebell on a 6-inch box. Eventually, you're going to progress to doing this with the barbell. The third and final exercise is the overhead press. You can do this as an incline chest press if you have shoulder mobility issues, and eventually can progress to doing this with dumbbells. Once you're able to do this with 10 pounds on each side, it's time to progress to the training bar. We use a 15-pound training bar at our studios, and once folks can do 45 pounds, we progress them to what's called the big bar. There's 3 keys to strength training safely. Number 1, you need to pick the right exercises, which I've just given you. Number 2, you need to start at the right level. I'd encourage you to pick the lowest starting level for all of them that you feel really confident in based on the video that I laid out today. And number 3, you need to progress appropriately. And I want to tell you the story of Milo of Croton. He was a Greek wrestler and he had a young calf, very small. And he would carry that young calf up the hill every day and then back down. And he'd feed it. Carry it up the hill the next day, bring it back down and feed it. Now that calf got bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually it became a full-grown bull. And Milo, in that process, became really, really strong, and he got bigger and stronger as well. Now this illustrates the concept of progressive overload perfectly. Now I don't know if that story is actually true, but it does illustrate the concept of progressive overload nearly perfectly. We want to progressively add resistance in our workouts over time. And so I want to go back to that squat, deadlift, and overhead press. Now, if you're able to do them and complete all of the repetitions just like I listed out in a workout with no pain, full range of motion, and good coordination, the next time you do the workout, you're going to increase by the smallest increment possible. So let's say you're doing that same barbell deadlift off the ground and you're doing 65 pounds and you do 3 sets of 3, no problems. The next workout, you're gonna bump up to 70 pounds for 3 sets of 3. The next workout, if everything went well, you're gonna go to 75 pounds for 3 sets of 3. And most people can follow this beginner progression for months before they hit any sort of plateau and need more advanced programming. This is the philosophy and approach we've used with thousands of clients at our strength training studios at Village Fitness. It works really, really well. It's typically only after we've developed a significant health problem or been told by our doctor that exercising is a matter of life and death that we begin to take action. But by then, it's often a magnitude more difficult to make the changes you're trying to make. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So start now. Even if you have to start really slow and it feels like you're not doing anything, you're making an impact and change for your body. Take back your health.